My parents invited my ex-wife to family events for years, until I uncovered her plan to steal everything and destroy my life, and then Hey everyone, I'm Ryan, and honestly, I don't even know where to start. I'm 34 now, and it's been 5 years since my ex-wife Jenna and I finalized our divorce. Let's just say things didn't end amicably, more like a dumpster fire that burned out in court. So imagine my shock when I show up to a Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' place last year and see her sitting there at the table like she's part of the family. At first, I thought, okay, this is weird, but maybe they're just being polite. Jenna and I were married for 6 years before things fell apart, and my parents always liked her, especially my mom. But still, we were divorced. You'd think that would be enough for some boundaries, right? Apparently not. It wasn't just Thanksgiving. I found out Jenna had been invited to birthdays, Christmas, even casual Sunday dinners, all without my knowledge. My mom even started sending her updates about family news, things that I hadn't even been told yet. For example, when my younger sister Emily got a new job, I heard about it from Jenna before Emily even texted me. It felt like I was living in some bizarre alternate reality where my ex-wife had taken over my family, and I was the outsider. At first, I tried to brush it off. Jenna's always had a knack for getting people to like her, and I figured maybe my parents just felt sorry for her. But then things started to get strange. My mom and dad, David and Karen, began to make these little comments about how I never call enough or don't spend enough time with family. Meanwhile, they'd go on and on about how Jenna was such a good person for staying close despite everything. I can't tell you how infuriating it was to hear my ex-wife praised for being a family-oriented saint while I was treated like a flake. I wanted to scream, "Do you not remember how she cheated on me?" But they never wanted to hear it. The final straw came when my mom made this passive-aggressive remark during a phone call. "You know, Ryan, Jenna told me you're dating someone new. It's disappointing you didn't think we deserved to know." I nearly dropped my phone. First of all, my new girlfriend, Olivia, and I had only been together for about 6 months at the time. We weren't rushing to introduce each other to our families just yet. Second, why the hell was Jenna still so invested in my personal life? I hadn't spoken to her directly since the divorce. I asked my mom how she even knew that, and she said, "Oh, Jenna mentioned it in passing. She said she saw you out with some girl at the farmer's market." You really should have told us, Ryan. We're your family. That's when it clicked. Jenna wasn't just keeping in touch with my parents out of the kindness of her heart. She was keeping tabs on me, and she was using my own family as a way to do it. It didn't take long for Olivia to notice something was off. She's smart like that, way smarter than me, if I'm being honest. One night after dinner at her place, I spilled everything. I told her how my parents had basically adopted my ex-wife, and how Jenna seemed to know more about my life than she had any right to. Olivia didn't say much at first, but I could tell she was processing it all. Finally, she looked at me and said, "Ryan, this isn't normal. She's crossing boundaries, and your parents are enabling her. You need to talk to them." She was right, of course, but easier said than done. My parents are stubborn, especially my mom. She's the kind of person who thinks she knows best about everyone's life, and she always has to be the one to mediate family issues. I could already hear her saying, "You're overreacting, Ryan. Jenna's just being friendly. You should be grateful she cares enough to stay in touch." Still, I knew I had to do something. So the next time I visited my parents, I brought it up as tactfully as I could. "Hey, Mom, Dad, can we talk about something?" I started while we were sitting in the living room. "Of course," my dad said, putting down his newspaper. My mom was folding laundry and barely looked up. "It's about Jenna," I said, and instantly, I saw my mom's jaw tighten. "What about her?" she asked. "Well, it's just that I've noticed she's been coming to a lot of family events. And I get that you guys care about her, but it's starting to feel weird. Like, why is she still so involved?" My mom sighed and set down the shirt she was folding. "Ryan, we're not just going to cut Jenna out of our lives because you two got divorced. She was part of this family for 6 years. She's been through a lot, and frankly, she's been more present than you have lately." That stung. "What do you mean by more present?" I asked, trying to keep my tone calm. "Well, she makes an effort, Ryan," my mom said. "She checks in. She comes to dinners. She even asked about the business. She's genuinely interested in how everyone's doing. I froze. What do you mean? She asked about the business. My dad chimed in then. She's just curious, that's all. She knows how much the family business means to us. She even offered to help out if we ever need it. Help out? With my family's business? The business I've been working in since I was 22 and was supposed to take over someday? I didn't say anything else. I just nodded and left the conversation there. But in my mind, alarm bells were ringing. Jenna wasn't just keeping tabs on me. She was trying to worm her way into the family business. And somehow, my parents were completely blind to it. That night, I told Olivia everything. She was furious on my behalf. But more than that, she was worried. Ryan, she said, you need to figure out what she's really up to. This isn't just about family dinners anymore. This is about your future. And that's when I decided. It was time to get to the bottom of Jenna's intentions. I spent the next week replaying my mom's words in my head. Asterisk, she even asked about the business. Asterisk, that line haunted me. The family business, an industrial supplies company my grandfather started, was supposed to be my legacy. I'd worked my ass off for over a decade to learn every aspect of the operation, from inventory to logistics. My parents had always told me the business would be mine someday, but now I wasn't so sure. The thought of Jenna sniffing around something so important to me made my blood boil. I decided I couldn't just sit back and let her meddle. I had to figure out what she was up to. The first thing I did was call Emily, my younger sister. Emily's 27 and probably the least involved in the family business, but she has a knack for picking up on things that others miss. If Jenna was plotting something, Emily might have seen it. Hey, Em, I said casually when she answered. Ryan, long time no chat. What's up? Not much, I said, trying to sound casual. Listen, I've been meaning to ask. What's the deal with Jenna hanging around all the time? Like, doesn't it seem weird to you? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Honestly? Yeah, it's a little weird, Emily admitted. But Mom and Dad are so into it. I just didn't want to rock the boat. Into it how? I pressed. Well, she's been really buddy-buddy with them lately. She's always asking Dad about his plans for the business, and Mom thinks she's, like, the perfect daughter-in-law, even though she's not your wife anymore. It's kind of gross, honestly. I felt a knot form in my stomach. What does she ask Dad about the business? Stuff like the future plans, who's running what department, how things are going financially. I don't know. Business stuff. I tuned most of it out, but she definitely seems interested. Thanks, Em, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. This helps a lot. Ryan, Emily said cautiously, you don't think she's trying to, screw you over or something, do you? I didn't answer right away because I honestly didn't know. I'm not sure, I admitted, but I'm going to find out. After my conversation with Emily, I started paying closer attention to Jenna's movements. I'd heard through the grapevine that she'd recently been spending time with Mark, a guy I couldn't stand. Mark was a competitor in the industry, someone who tried, and failed, to poach several of our biggest clients. If Jenna and Mark were working together, it could mean serious trouble for the family business. I decided to do some digging. Social media didn't show much. Jenna had always been careful about what she posted, but Mark's profile was another story. There, buried among photos of networking events and industry conferences, was a picture of him and Jenna at a fancy dinner, dated just a month ago. The caption read, asterisk, great things on the horizon. Asterisk, my stomach churned. What kind of great things were they planning? I saved the photo and showed it to Olivia that night. This can't be a coincidence, right? I asked. Olivia frowned as she studied the picture. No way. She's definitely up to something. Do you think she's trying to sabotage you? That's what I'm afraid of, I admitted. If she and Mark are working together, they could be trying to take over the business, or at least mess things up for me. Olivia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Ryan, you need to talk to your parents. They deserve to know what's going on before it's too late. That weekend, I decided to confront my parents about Jenna. Unfortunately, it turned into one of the most awkward and infuriating conversations of my life. It started innocently enough. We were having dinner at their house, just the three of us, when I brought up the topic. So, I've noticed Jenna's been pretty involved in the family lately, I said, trying to sound neutral. My mom smiled, completely oblivious to my tone. Oh, she's been wonderful, hasn't she? It's so nice having her around. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. But don't you think it's a little strange? I mean, she's not family anymore. Why is she so interested in the business? My dad looked up from his plate. She's just curious, Ryan. She cares about what happens to the company. She knows how much it means to all of us. But does she need to know about future plans or finances? I pressed. Don't you think that's overstepping? My mom's expression hardened. Ryan, you're being paranoid. Jenna has always had the best intentions. She's trying to help. Help? I scoffed. She's working with Mark. That got their attention. My dad frowned. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed them the photo of Jenna and Mark. Look at this. She's been meeting with him behind your backs. Do you really think she's just helping? My mom glanced at the photo but didn't look as horrified as I'd expected. Ryan, this doesn't prove anything. Jenna knows a lot of people in the industry. This could be completely innocent. Innocent? I snapped. Mark has been trying to undermine us for years, and now Jenna's working with him. How is that innocent? Ryan, my mom said sharply, you're letting your bitterness cloud your judgment. Not everything is a conspiracy against you. I stared at her, dumbfounded. Are you serious right now? She's literally scheming with our biggest competitor, and you're defending her? My dad sighed heavily. Ryan, we understand that you and Jenna didn't end on good terms, but that doesn't mean she's out to get you. Maybe you should take a step back and think about how you're coming across. How I'm coming across. I repeated, my voice rising. I'm the one trying to protect this family, and you're too blind to see it. The conversation ended with me storming out of the house, angrier than I'd ever been. But as I was leaving, Emily caught up with me in the driveway. Ryan, wait, she said, grabbing my arm. There's something you should know. What? I asked, still fuming. I overheard Jenna talking to Mom a couple of weeks ago, she said hesitantly. She mentioned something about how she deserved to be part of the family business because of all the years she put into this family. Mom just kind of brushed it off, but I don't know, it sounded weird. Deserved? I repeated, my heart pounding. Emily nodded. Yeah, like she thought she had a right to it or something. That was it. That was the moment I knew I couldn't just sit back and wait for things to unfold. Jenna wasn't just meddling. She was actively plotting to take what was mine. And if my parents weren't going to stop her, I would. After Emily's revelation, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. Jenna wasn't just trying to stay connected to my family. She was trying to take over my future. If my parents wouldn't believe me, I'd have to prove it to them. That night, Olivia and I brainstormed our next move. She suggested we dig into Jenna's connections with Mark and see if there was anything concrete tying them to a plan against me. As much as I hated the idea of snooping, it was the only way to expose what was going on. I started by reaching out to a former coworker of Jenna's who had always been friendly with me. Her name was Lauren, and we kept in touch casually over the years. Lauren had worked with Jenna back when we were married, and she had a knack for sniffing out office gossip. Hey, Lauren, I said when she picked up my call. I know this is kind of random, but I need your help. Of course, Ryan. What's up? I was wondering if you've heard anything about Jenna recently. Specifically, if she's been talking to someone named Mark. He's in the same industry as my family's business. Lauren hesitated for a moment. Actually, yeah. I ran into Jenna at a networking event a few weeks ago, and she was with this guy. I think his name was Mark. They were chatting about some business partnership. I didn't catch all the details, but it sounded like they were working on something big. Did she say what it was about? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No, but she mentioned something about opportunities and expanding influence. It sounded pretty ambitious. My heart sank. Thanks, Lauren. That's really helpful. Is everything okay? She asked. Not really, I admitted. But you've given me exactly what I needed to know. Now that I had confirmation of Jenna and Mark's connection, I needed a way to expose their plans. Olivia suggested setting a trap, giving Jenna access to false information about the family business and seeing if it made its way back to Mark. It was risky, but it was the only way to get undeniable proof. The next time I visited my parents, I casually mentioned a fake business expansion idea during dinner. I told them I was considering opening a new distribution center in a neighboring state, something I knew Mark would jump at the chance to exploit if he thought it was true. Interesting, my dad said, clearly intrigued. That could be a good move if the numbers work out. My mom nodded, but she was distracted by her phone. I had a sinking feeling she was texting Jenna right then and there. Over the next few days, I kept my ear to the ground, waiting for any sign that Jenna had taken the bait. It didn't take long. 2 weeks later, one of our regular clients called me in a panic. "Ryan, is it true you're opening a new location in Oregon?" he asked. I froze. "Where did you hear that?" "A guy named Mark. He said your family was planning to expand and might not have the resources to keep servicing clients at the current level. He made it sound like you were overextending yourselves." My blood boiled. Mark had taken the fake information and used it to spread doubt among our clients. Worse, Jenna had clearly fed it to him. That evening, I called a family meeting. My parents, Emily, and Jenna were all there. I even invited Olivia for moral support. This time, I wasn't holding back. "I know what you've been doing," I said the moment everyone was seated. My eyes were locked on Jenna. She looked surprised, but only for a second. "What are you talking about, Ryan?" "You've been feeding Mark information about the family business," I said bluntly. "And he's been using it to undermine us." Jenna scoffed, but I noticed her hands tighten around the edge of the table. "That's ridiculous. I don't even know what you're talking about." "Oh, really?" I said, pulling out my phone. "Because one of our clients told me Mark mentioned a new distribution center in Oregon. Funny how that's the exact same fake idea I told Mom and Dad about 2 weeks ago. The only way he could have known is if someone told him." I glanced at my parents, but they looked bewildered. My mom frowned. "Ryan, are you saying we gave him that information?" "No," I said, shaking my head. "But Jenna did." "Ryan, this is insane," Jenna said, her voice rising. "Why would I do that?" "To sabotage me," I shot back. "To make me look bad, so you can worm your way into the business. Don't pretend you haven't been angling for it." My dad's face darkened. "Is this true, Jenna? Have you been talking to Mark?" Jenna hesitated, and in that moment, I knew I had her. "I've spoken to him a few times," she admitted. "But it's not what you think. He's just a friend who happens to be our biggest competitor," I said, glaring at her. "Give me a break." My parents were stunned. My mom looked like she wanted to defend Jenna, but even she couldn't deny the evidence. My dad, on the other hand, was furious. "You've been working with the competition?" he demanded. "After everything we've done for you?" "David, it's not like that," Jenna said, her voice trembling. "I was just trying to help. Mark had some ideas about how to improve the business." "Enough," my dad snapped. "I don't want to hear it." Jenna turned to my mom, desperate. "Karen, you believe me, don't you? You know I'd never hurt this family." My mom hesitated, torn between her loyalty to Jenna and the reality of the situation. Finally, she sighed. "I think you should leave, Jenna." Jenna's face crumpled, but she didn't argue. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the house without another word. After Jenna left, my parents apologized for not listening to me sooner. My dad admitted he'd been too trusting, and my mom confessed she'd let her personal feelings for Jenna cloud her judgment. "It's going to take time to rebuild trust," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "But I'm willing to work on it if you are." Olivia squeezed my hand under the table, silently showing her support. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't fighting this battle alone. It wasn't enough to simply get Jenna out of the picture. I knew she and Mark wouldn't stop scheming just because they'd been caught red-handed. If anything, their plans would get more desperate. I needed to dismantle whatever influence Jenna still had, and that meant exposing her intentions to everyone: clients, family friends, and anyone else who mattered in our world. Olivia, ever the strategist, came up with a plan. "Jenna's been playing a long con," she said as we sat in my living room that weekend. "If we want to take her down, we have to show people exactly who she is and make it impossible for her to come back." She was right, of course. Jenna was like a parasite, thriving off people's goodwill and using it against them. But this time, I had the upper hand. I started by reaching out to a few key people: longtime clients, close family friends, and trusted employees in the family business. These were the people Jenna had been cozying up to over the years, feeding them her carefully curated version of events. "Hey, Paul," I said during one of the calls, speaking to a longtime client. "I wanted to give you a heads up about something. You've probably heard from Jenna recently." "Yeah, she stopped by last month," Paul said. "She mentioned she was still close with your family." "Why?" I took a deep breath. "I hate to say this, but Jenna's been using those connections to spread false information about our business. She's been working with Mark, trying to undermine us. I just wanted you to know the truth so you're not blindsided." Paul paused for a moment. "I appreciate the honesty, Ryan. I had a feeling something was off when she brought up your supposed expansion." "Don't worry. We've got your back." Conversations like that happened over and over. With each call, I chipped away at the facade Jenna had built, piece by piece. By the time I was done, her reputation was hanging by a thread. The next part of the plan was riskier. I decided to confront Mark directly, not just to rattle him, but to see if I could force his hand. Olivia warned me to tread carefully. Mark was cunning, and I couldn't afford to give him any ammunition. We met at a neutral location, a small cafe downtown. I walked in and saw him sitting at a corner table, his smug expression already grating on my nerves. "Ryan," he said, standing to shake my hand. "What a surprise. To what do I owe the pleasure?" I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Cut the crap, Mark. I know what you and Jenna have been up to." His smirk faltered for a moment before he leaned back in his chair, feigning nonchalance. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Really?" I said, pulling out my phone and showing him the photo of him and Jenna at dinner. "You've been meeting with my ex-wife, feeding off insider information she's stolen from my family." "Don't play dumb." Mark's expression darkened. "You're making a lot of accusations, Ryan. You'd better have more than a photo to back them up." "Oh, I do?" I said, matching his tone. "You see, Jenna made a mistake. She leaked false information to you, something I planted specifically to catch her. And you fell for it." His eyes narrowed, but he didn't respond. I pressed on. "Here's the deal, Mark. If I find out you so much as breathe near my business again, I'll make sure every client in this industry knows exactly who you are and what you've done. And trust me, your reputation won't survive it." He didn't say a word as I stood up to leave, but the tension in his jaw told me everything I needed to know. Jenna and Mark's partnership was crumbling, and I intended to make sure it stayed that way. Despite my best efforts, Jenna wasn't going down without a fight. She'd already burned bridges with my parents and most of our clients, but she still had a few loyal allies. One of them was a former employee named Steve, who'd left the company years ago under questionable circumstances. Steve was known for cutting corners, and he had a grudge against my family after my dad fired him. I found out through Emily, who had quietly kept tabs on Jenna, that she and Steve were trying to start a rival company. They'd even pitched the idea to a few of our smaller clients, hoping to poach them. That's when I decided to go nuclear. Using some old contracts I dug up from our archives, I discovered that Steve had violated a non-compete clause when he started working with Jenna. Armed with that information, I contacted our legal team and initiated a cease and desist order. Within days, Steve's operation was shut down, and Jenna's last remaining lifeline was severed. The fallout was brutal. Word spread quickly that Jenna and Steve had tried, and failed, to start a rival company. Clients who had once admired her now saw her for what she was, a manipulative opportunist. Even her personal relationships began to unravel. Emily told me she'd heard through mutual friends that Jenna was struggling to find work and had been forced to move out of her fancy apartment. Mark had cut ties with her completely, likely to save his own skin. My parents, to their credit, finally admitted they'd been wrong about Jenna. My mom was especially remorseful. "I don't know how I let her fool me," she said one night. "I thought I was helping her, but all I did was enable her." "It's not your fault," I said, though part of me still felt bitter. "She's just really good at pretending to be someone she's not." With Jenna out of the picture, life slowly returned to normal. Olivia and I grew closer through the ordeal, and my parents began to repair their relationship with me. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. One evening, as Olivia and I sat on the couch watching TV, She turned to me and said, "You know, I'm proud of you." "For what?" I asked, surprised. "For standing up for yourself," she said. "For protecting what's yours." Her words stayed with me long after she'd said them. Jenna had tried to take everything from me, my family, my business, my future. But in the end, all she'd done was destroy herself. The dust had mostly settled, but there was still one thing nagging at me: closure. Jenna's web of lies had nearly torn apart my family, sabotaged my career, and destroyed years of trust. While her plans had ultimately backfired, I needed to confront her one final time, not out of anger, but to ensure she couldn't resurface in my life. I reached out to Jenna through an old mutual friend, explaining that I wanted to meet her in a neutral location. The friend was skeptical, but Jenna agreed, likely curious about what I had to say. We met at a quiet park on a crisp autumn afternoon. She looked worn, her usual confident demeanor replaced by unease. "Ryan," she said with a forced smile, "this is unexpected. I didn't waste time with pleasantries." "Jenna, I'm here because I want to make something clear. This is the last time we'll ever have a conversation. You've crossed every line imaginable, and I need you to understand that I'm done with you." Her face tightened. "You've made your point, Ryan. Believe me, I've paid the price." "Have you?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. "Because I don't think you've really grasped the damage you caused. You manipulated my parents, tried to sabotage the business, and even went as far as working with Mark to undermine me. For what? Money? Revenge?" She looked away, her expression shifting to one of defensiveness. "I just wanted what I deserved. I spent years in your family, supporting you and building a life. Then you threw it all away." I laughed bitterly. "You mean when you cheated on me? When you destroyed our marriage?" "Don't twist this into some noble cause, Jenna. You weren't trying to claim what you deserved. You were trying to ruin me because you couldn't stand that I moved on." Her jaw clenched, but she didn't deny it. For the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability beneath her carefully constructed facade. "You don't understand, Ryan. After the divorce, I had nothing. No support, no stability. I had to fend for myself, and it wasn't easy." "Welcome to the consequences of your actions," I said, standing. "I don't owe you anything, Jenna. Not my family, not my business, not my forgiveness. This is the last time we'll speak. Don't contact me or anyone in my family again." She didn't say anything as I walked away, and I didn't look back. For the first time in years, I felt free. With Jenna finally out of the picture, I turned my focus back to what mattered: my family, my career, and my relationship with Olivia. My parents had been deeply apologetic about their role in the chaos, and while it wasn't easy, I worked on rebuilding trust with them. My dad took the lead in making amends. "Ryan, I want you to know that your mother and I are fully behind you taking over the business," he said one evening over dinner. "We made a mistake trusting Jenna, and we see that now. You've earned this." Hearing those words felt like a weight had been lifted. "Thanks, Dad," I said. "I just want to make sure we're all on the same page moving forward." My mom chimed in, her voice tinged with regret. "We're proud of you, Ryan, and we're sorry for not seeing through her sooner." Emily, ever the peacemaker, added, "At least it's over now. We can finally move on as a family." With the business secure and my family relationships healing, Olivia and I began to plan for the future. She had been my rock throughout the entire ordeal, offering support and wisdom when I needed it most. It was only natural that our next step was to start building a life together. One evening, as we sat on the balcony of her apartment, overlooking the city lights, I took her hand. "I don't think I could have gotten through this without you," I said. She smiled, leaning into me. "You didn't need me, Ryan. You've always been stronger than you realize. I just reminded you of that." Her words resonated deeply. For years, I'd let Jenna's actions dictate my life, but Olivia had helped me reclaim control. She made me want to be better, not just for her, but for myself. "I mean it," I said, pulling a small velvet box from my pocket. Her eyes widened as I opened it to reveal a simple but elegant ring. "Olivia, will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, 1,000,000 times yes." Though I had moved on, Jenna's reputation continued to unravel. Mark, eager to distance himself from the fiasco, spread rumors about her involvement in their failed schemes. Clients who had once admired her turned their backs, and former allies avoided her entirely. Emily told me she'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Jenna was now working a mediocre job far outside the industry, a far cry from the influential position she tried to claim. It wasn't the revenge I'd planned, but it was fitting. Jenna's own greed and manipulation had been her undoing. As I stood at the head of the conference room months later, addressing our team about the future of the family business, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. The challenges Jenna had thrown my way had tested me in ways I never expected, but they'd also strengthened me. I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of my parents, Emily, and Olivia, now my fiancée. This was my family, my support system, my team. Jenna had tried to tear us apart, but in the end, all she'd done was remind us of how much we meant to each other. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was enough.